All right, so I'm really sorry about the last video I did with some delay and probably dropped frames and such, but I'm going to give it another try here. So today I'm talking about add-ons and conditions. These are features within Dorico that allow us to have a lot more control over the automatic playback. And a couple of people had left comments asking questions specifically about conditions and add-ons, and so I wanted to address it. So add-ons are something you'd use when there's maybe like a MIDI CC or a secondary key switch. For example, in an orchestral library, you might use a MIDI CC value to add on portamento or consordino or something like that on top of having already selected your main patch with a key switch. So there's sort of like a secondary key switch. That's what add-ons are for. I'm going to show you an example of that where I'm going to switch vibrato presets within a Stradivari cello, and then I'm also going to explain how to set those up so you'll be able to see that. The other aspect I'm going to talk about is conditions. Now, conditions are something where you can tell Dorico to play back certain articulations based on note length. And this is especially helpful when you want to get a more realistic playback, right? Because a violinist, for example, or a cello player in my example here, is going to see quarter notes, half notes, eighth notes, 16th notes. They're going to bow and play with more clarity and articulation on those short notes to make sure that they don't last as long, but they really come through. Whereas on a longer note, a half note, a full note, something like that, they might really lean into it being more expressive, a slower attack, longer release, kind of play around with those things. A human being will do that, and you can actually tell Dorico to do that. If my note is, an eighth long, then play this articulation. If it's a quarter long, play this articulation. Again, I'm going to show you how that's done, and I'm going to play an example here for you that that you can hear. So let me just switch over to Dorico, and the whole thing that's going on here is an arrangement of quarter notes and half note. There's a whole note in there as well, and then a bunch of eighths. And I'm going to show you what this looks like from two different perspectives. Okay, first we're going to use this playing technique lane here, which helps us kind of troubleshoot and see what's going on. So right now, all of these notes have this sort of default natural articulation. Whereas on this track, suddenly we have, this is recognizing quarter notes, it's recognizing half notes, eighth notes, and this whole note, and it's actually using different articulations. Detache, bowed, virtuoso, you'll see these are articulations built into my instrument. And this sort of arrangement where it's choosing the articulations I didn't do with playing techniques and playback techniques. It's not like I have to mark stuff up on my score. It's just doing this because I've told it, hey, treat quarter notes with this articulation, treat half notes with this articulation, eighth notes with this articulation, and whole notes with this articulation. And it's doing it automatically, and I can see that it's choosing the playing techniques correctly. So let's listen to a couple of examples here. All right, I'm going to open up my mixer, and I'm just going to play. This is a basic version. This has, this basically is all natural, and you can see that some of these are eighths, some of these are halves, some of these are eighths and quarters, and because it's all played with one articulation, there's not really a whole lot of personality to it. It's definitely not the way, it's definitely miles away from realistic. So let's just hear it. All right, it's pretty lifeless. Let's listen to the second example, which is able to choose different articulations based on the length of the note. This is using conditions. All right, so what's happening here? So I've got an expression map. I'm going to go to my library expression maps. And I'm going to look at this one that I created for Stradivari cello. This is a Native Instruments library here that was made by E-Instruments, looks like. And so what's going on in my expression map is this. I am using these note conditions down in this region, and I'm saying, okay, if a note length is very long, which is kind of an arbitrary name, these settings here in this dropdown are predefined by Dorico, but you'll see from this example how they actually break down. So if it's very long, then I call that 1/1 whole note. Half note, if it's just long. A quarter note if it's medium. And staccatissimo if it's short. And so I've given it these sort of text labels. You can change that up here. I've done that just so that it's even more visible when we apply this expression map into our instrument, which I've done over here. You go to the endpoint configuration and make sure the expression map is enabled right here. You have to double click to set it. And what you get then is you see those different articulations being recognized. But the reason they're recognized and the reason they're changing by Dorico is because my expression map has used conditions to tell it based on the note length, which articulation do I want to hear. So I've got this virtuoso is kind of a preset auto cellist, I suppose, built into this particular instrument. You can customize the different articulations, but I've got this bowed articulation kind of for the quarters, and then I've got this staccatissimo for the eighths, and I have a sustained bowed right here as well. That's what's going to be playing on the whole note at the end. So as I play this back again, I want to just zoom in here, and you can see these articulations change. Oops, sorry. I've got the wrong one loaded up, or view. So let me view this one instead. There we go. Now we'll go back to the beginning. And you'll see how the articulations change here. You can see it going to the virtuoso. So it's actually spiccatissimo, not staccatissimo here. So it's switching based on the note lengths. And if I were to go into this here and I were to change this note length to a quarter note, you'd see that now it includes it in the détaché bowed. If I were to take this note and lengthen it out, you'd see that this note becomes virtuoso. So there's an automatic sort of process happening in the background because I've set conditions. And that's what's going on. You can hear it in this performance. It just has much more dynamic realism. Then it goes to that long sustained bow for the whole note at the end of each one. Now, that's conditions. Let's talk about add-ons. So add-ons are represented here in this example with passionate and intense. Now, this depends a lot on the instrument that you're using, how add-ons would actually be used. So let's take a look at an example here in the Stradivari cello. I've decided to go ahead and change the vibrato preset style. So there's a variety of presets here for the style of vibrato that you want. I'm just showing two examples with passionate and intense. And what I did was I created a playing technique and a playback technique. If you need help doing that, you can check out my other videos that I made in the last few weeks about playing and playback techniques. But basically, it's a way of customizing techniques. So they show up over here. I've got Vib intense and Vib passionate, and I've assigned them to these notes. And when that happens, you'll see that in the passionate one here, let's bring this up, and I'm going to solo it and open it up. you're going to see that no matter what I have the style set to, I'll start with wide. You'll see that when I play back this whole note, that style is going to change to passionate. There you go. So it's changing to passionate because I'm sending a CC value. So in other words, this note has an actual key switch associated with it, which is playing that long sustained bowed note, which I am using conditions to say any whole note, I want to use that particular articulation. So there's a key switch for the articulation, but secondarily, there's a MIDI CC value that this instrument recognizes as a way to switch between these styles. I'm switching between two styles. In the intense version over here, it changes to the intense style. Again, it's just a preset. But sometimes, depending on the instrument that you're using, this might be how you enable legato, or how you enable consordino, or how you enable portamento, things like that, that are secondary key switches or CC values. And I'm going to go into the expression map, show you how this is set up. So you can see now, the original are what they call bass type expressions. These are called add-ons, and you actually add it with this button down here. It looks sort of like a little puzzle piece. And here what I'm doing is I'm sending a control change. I'm not sending a key switch. So like these are actual key switches up here. And you can see they're going to different key switches. But this is a control change on CC 20. I'm setting a value of 22, goes to intense. Anything under 21 is passionate. And you just have to figure out what those values are for your instrument and for your specific control that you need. Now, in order to tie this all in here to your expression map, you have to be able to add a playback name, right? So you have to have a playback technique visible here. Like I've got vibrato intense and vibrato passionate. You have to have them in here, and if they're not, then you need to go and add a playback technique or a playing technique. I've added both here and connected them up, and that's how that's how this is working on the front end. So I do need to add that in there, but it allows me to basically have kind of a primary and secondary key switch, so to speak, and that's exactly what add-ons do. All right, so I generally try to keep these relatively brief. I think we've avoided too many dropped frames in this video, so thank you for your patience if you logged on earlier for my other version. But yeah, we are hopefully kind of turning the corner on many of the fundamental features within Dorico that allow us to write our demos and have them have a lot of control over their expressiveness and realism. And although some of this stuff is really finicky and nitpicky to get up and running with, it's so worth it, because like once you get these expression maps created and you're using your conditions, you're using add-ons correctly, then it facilitates things down the road. So like, you know, there is definitely a learning curve getting started with this. As time goes by, you find that you're able to produce more realistic music more quickly. And that's really what I'm aiming at. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Please like and subscribe the video. Those two actions really help me surface my videos to a larger audience, which I'm trying to do at this time. So thank you very much for supporting me and the channel that I'm developing. And again, leave questions, any comments in the comments down below, and I will see you next time. Thanks again. Bye.